All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being a part of today's show. Hang on a second. There we go. All right, I am. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, you can hear. Being a part of today's show. Hang on a second. There we go. All right, so I'm trying to do. I probably can't do that. I'm probably not going to be able to do this. All right, so I'm trying to do two things at one time. Okay, good morning, everybody. I was trying to do where you could hear the interview I'm going to run shortly live on Instagram through another device, but it gives feedback. So when I get to that interview, I'll end the Instagram broadcast and I'll come back when it's over. So happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Chalk Talk. So much going on. Super excited to have you with me. Good morning. Good morning. The Super Bowl is Sunday. Right, you guys knew that, right? You knew that. It is the Patriots and the Rams. And for all of my New Orleans Saints friends and people, I know y'all still mad. I don't know what to tell you, but I've heard from some of you that you are boycotting. You're not going to watch this weekend. So have a great, great Sunday and a happy weekend. I'm not really super excited about this game. I don't know why. Of course, I'm going to watch it, because that's what I do. And some people say the Patriots are the underdogs. I find that hard to believe. If I had to pick a team, I'd pick the Patriots in this game on Sunday. So if you have questions, if you want to talk Super Bowl, we can do that. And one of the things I said, I was going to try to show you something today, but I couldn't work it out logistically. Maybe maybe tomorrow or Saturday, I'll shoot something and give you guys an example of a couple little light snacks you can make or fun treats you can make for the Super Bowl other than the typical stuff. I know Kim, she says, yes, she's still very angry. I know it was ridiculous. I have talked to people who say, you know what, but Sean Payton shouldn't have run the ball all those times. And that's true. Perhaps, he should not have, run the ball, but that was an awful call. Right? That was a really, really awful call. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to tell you some things that you might want to consider having for your Super Bowl party. Or if you're going someplace, take something other than just chicken wings and chips and salsa, right? Or make your own. Like there's some great little easy recipes. I'll share a couple this weekend over the next couple of days. Make sure you're following me on my Instagram page, which is kim.y.davis or Kimmy Treats, either one of those. And I will share with you a few things that you can make pretty simple stuff, right? Hey, hello, over on Instagram. Yeah, I know. Kim says she's on the fence, but she's probably going to end up watching it. Right. It's kind of a thing, right? Even if you are upset about the fact that the Saints should have been there. Or if you're not a huge football fan, it is just a day that people hang out and get together. I don't go to here's a little thing on me, a lot of Super Bowl parties because I actually like to watch the game. And sometimes it's really more about everything else. And I don't want to be the person in the room who's not like being social or who actually wants to hear the broadcast instead of it being turned down and just on in the background. So if that's you, I understand. It's me too, but I'm going to go someplace on Sunday, perhaps. Sometimes, you guys, I just watch it at home. If I'm not going to the game, I'm not working, I watch it at home. It's so cool. But I think I'm going to go someplace on Sunday. If you're having a really cool Super Bowl event and you want to invite me, inbox me, But so I'm not sure yet where I'm watching the game. The reason I mention it, because I've had several people ask me, where are you going to be watching the game on Sunday? I don't know yet. Anyway, but we can talk Super Bowl. We can talk Super Bowl food. We're going to talk recruiting shortly with Coach Michael Haywood because National Signing Day is next week on the 6th. And you guys know I don't do a lot of high school stuff, but I do talk about colleges. And the signing day is a big deal. It's where in football, college football, these young men are making decisions about where they're going to go and study and where they're going to go play football. And so who has the best recruiting class, what's happening in college football. It seems like just yesterday, the championship game was on where Clemson waxed, and I did say waxed, Well, they waxed Alabama. So, Nick Saban probably has not slept since that game because he's that kind of guy, right? He is such a competitor and he's such a worker bee, right? So, yeah. Trying to wave at you guys. Okay, let me say this to my friends on Instagram. Thank you for joining me for the Instagram broadcast as well. I can't believe y'all let me have the Instagram live broadcast on and I was sideways. It was one person who had joined for the first time. He says, "Why are you sideways?" And I was like, "I don't know." Because I hadn't been doing Instagram live and I'm so used to turning the camera the other way. So anyway, y'all look out for your girl. If I'm doing a show and you see something is clearly not right, just hit me up, make a comment, inbox me, DM me, or whatever you call it, and let me know, like, hey, you got something going on. You might want to fix this. You might want to turn the camera the correct way because you're sideways. Anyway, I digress. Happy Thursday, everybody. Before we get to talking about the Super Bowl and Super Bowl snacks and recruiting day, let's just talk a little bit about the NBA. The Houston Rockets. Man, I was at that game the other night when they lost to New Orleans. And this was a New Orleans team that was playing without Anthony Davis. It was like playing without three of their starters. It was, I thought they were going to call me down. Like, hey, can you come and we need somebody? Because that's how short-handed they were. Yeah, that team beat the Rockets that had everybody back except for Clint Capella, okay? And you could say, well, listen, the Pelicans just were a lot longer, and they are, but so what? Clint Capella's been out for a minute. Here's one number I'm just going to throw at you. You guys know I don't do a whole lot of stats on this show, but the points in the paint from that game, the Rockets had 50. And the Pelicans had 70. I mean, the Rockets shot less than 40% from the field in their own building. And although James Harden ended up with, I believe, 35 points, he shot less than 40%. I mean, he shot closer to 30%, maybe just a little over 30%. And you know why that is? It's because Drew Holiday was all over him. And after the game and talking to Mike D'Antoni, he said, Drew Holiday may be the best defensive player in the league, or he's definitely one of the best defensive players in the league. He gave James Harden all kind of fits. James Harden's going to score. He's going to get to the line, but he had to work for it. And he sacrificed in terms of his percentage. But I mean, he averaged like 35. I mean, he may have finished with 35 points. I have the stat sheet over there. I can't really see it from here. I think James Harden averaged like 44 points a game for the month, which is crazy. But how good will this team be? We still don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Clint Capella is still a few weeks from getting back. They expect him back in the lineup after the All-Star game. But I know the thing that some of y'all want to talk about, right? Anthony Davis has said, you know what? I don't want to play. I don't want to play here anymore. And I'm not going to resign. They offered him, he's got a huge extension on the table with the Pelicans. He said, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to be here. So, remember in the offseason or recently, Anthony Davis, I paused? Okay. Anthony Davis, maybe it's the internet connection. Thank you for that. Anthony Davis signed with Rich Paul. Rich Paul is also, let me see if that does something. Nope. Okay. Anthony Davis signed with Rich Paul. Rich Paul is also LeBron James's agent. He represents LeBron James, who, of course, plays for the Lakers. The Lakers, of course, have a lot of room under their cap and are still in need of that other all-star. So, is he going to the Lakers? I don't know where he's going to go, right? But one of the things that they did, and the league is saying, okay, we're going to make sure that there's no tampering. We're going to make sure that, because he's under contract and there's just a certain way you can do it. And there are certain rules in place so that teams don't have an unfair advantage. And they do call it like tampering. So by them, somebody asked me, what was the point of him coming out right now and saying that he wants to be traded? So the other team that has a lot of room under the cap, a lot of availability, is Boston, the Boston Celtics. Well, clearly he doesn't want to go to Boston, or it seems like he doesn't want to go to the Celtics. So the Celtics cannot make a deal for Anthony Davis because of the way the contracts are structured before the trade deadline. They can't get it done before then because they have Kyrie Irving. And because of the kind of contracts that Kyrie had, the only way that Boston could sign Anthony Davis now, make a deal for him, they would have to move Kyrie. Okay. So it's kind of like Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, Anthony Davis's agent. It's kind of like they're saying, we want to be a Laker and let's get it done now because he wants to go west. He doesn't want to go to the Celtics. Okay. But at the end of the day, the Pelicans get to decide who they deal with. And the Pelicans can say, all right, you said you want to be traded. You don't want to play here. We get it. He is under contract. They don't have to do anything, right? Until 2020. They won't wait until then because you're going to lose him and get absolutely nothing. But they don't have to make any kind of a move right now. They don't have to make a deal for Anthony Davis before the trade deadline. The Pelicans are really in the driver's seat on this deal. They're going to wait for the best deal. And maybe the Pelicans don't want to trade him to the West where they will have to face him more than if he goes to the East and they'll only see him twice a year, right? One home, one away. So that whole situation is interesting. It's going to be interesting to watch unfold and develop. And yes, someone said, I thought Kyrie is going to the Lakers. I've been reading that Kyrie is interested, and this is so funny, in being reunited with LeBron. We know recently, what was it, about a week or two ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, he called LeBron and he apologized for just the way stuff went down in Cleveland. I don't see the Kyrie going to Lakers thing. I don't know. But they certainly would love to have Anthony Davis. I don't know how that gets done. I know that they've got a lot of things to play with. And so it's up to Magic Johnson and his team to make it really appealing for the Pelicans to make this deal. But the Pelicans have said this week, they said, listen, we're going to make it on our own, in our own time, and we'll get done what's best for the franchise. So that's going to be interesting to play out. I mean, to see how it plays out, to see how it unfolds. And we'll watch this space. We will continue to talk about that because that is the business of the NBA. And we always talk about it. It is indeed a business. They did have a big reunion. You're right about that. They had a big reunion. And yeah. Okay. So we're going to put a pause in the basketball talk for right now. And for those of you over on Instagram, I'm going to end that broadcast because I have an interview and you won't be able to hear it. And then I'll come back afterwards. So thank you guys. I'll see you on Instagram shortly. And now I'm going to welcome my guest, Mike Haywood, Coach Haywood, to the show, who's no stranger to Chalk Talk. He has been with us many times before. And welcome, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Kim?
I'm good. Happy Thursday. Happy almost Super Bowl.
Well, happy Thursday. But let me say this to you as I was listening to you guys talk about the Lakers. I'd like to give a shout out to Christina Francis that on Monday, she was named president of the Magic Johnson Corporation.
Oh, really? Your Christina that went to Notre Dame with you?
Yes.
Wow.
And so I'd like to give a shout out to her. She called on Tuesday to tell me about her promotion. I think is outstanding. And I think she'll do a great job.
That's awesome. So I'd love to get in touch with Christina about some stuff I'm working on. And so I'll have to get you to make that connection for me. But yeah, congratulations to her. That is obviously a very big corporation doing some amazing work, and good for her.
It's outstanding.
You Notre Dame people. All right. So Michael, do you watch the Super Bowl, or do you not really do the NFL stuff very much?
You know, when I was growing up, I never watched the Super Bowl, but I'm watching this Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be really exciting because the last Super Bowl that I attended was the Rams versus Seattle in Detroit. And Tim McDonald, whose grandfather was Wellington Mark, he took us to the Super Bowl. Well, the other guy that went with us was Shane Waldron. And Shane Waldron is now, who was our GA at Notre Dame at the time, is now the passing game coordinator for the Rams. So when he sent me that text the other day, the last time I was at a Super Bowl was with you watching the Rams play. I said, I'm definitely watching this game this weekend.
So tell me, so what year was that? Because that was Detroit. That would have been in 2005? No.
About 2005 or 2006.
2005. Yeah, it was 2005 because I remember when I worked for the Super Bowl, it was for 2004. It was, and then it was 2006 because the next year it was in Jacksonville and then it went to Detroit. Right. So it would have been 2006.
Yeah, it was a great time too. We got to see Lionel Richie live. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, if you call being in Detroit in the winter fun.
Well, I tell you what, being in the Midwest at this time of the year is not going to be any fun, but I'm headed up there on Monday, and it's -13 right now.
Well, I was just booking some reservations, and the reservationist, I'm not going to Nebraska, but was in Nebraska. And because I always ask, hey, what part of the country are you in? She says Nebraska. I said, oh, you guys are cold. She said, yeah, we're really cold. It's so cold that the postal workers are not working. They didn't work yesterday or today. So I was listening where they said in Wisconsin, it's so cold that they are not even able to deliver beer because the beer will freeze en route. I just had never heard of such.
It is cold. The little man told me this morning, little Michael told me this morning, Dad, it is in the -30s with the wind chill factor.
Wow.
So everything is shut down up there.
Yeah, good luck. That's where you're headed, right?
Next week, but it's going to be a lot warmer next week. It'll be in the teens next week.
Okay, well, good luck with that. So since you're watching this game, who are you picking? Patriots, Rams? What do you think?
Well, it's really interesting because the head coach of the Rams, when I was the head coach of Miami of Ohio, he came to interview with the offensive coordinator for a GA position. The offensive coordinator didn't hire him. So they called me last week. The Rams called me last week to tell me that story, and I was just rolling. So I'm gonna, although it's hard to go against Brady, I'm gonna go with the Rams.
Wow. So he has he's turned that franchise around, and he's also made really, for those who didn't realize how horrible of a job Jeff Fisher was doing, it became really clear when he went in and with basically the same team had immediate success.
Well, you know, he's really a young, enthusiastic coach, really innovative. I was sitting up there watching the game the other day, and I text Shane, the passing game coordinator, and I say, you look like Charlie Weiss. I say, you guys just called 334, 335. He sent me back a text and say, hey, well, as long as you aren't talking to New England, I don't have to worry about it. But,
wow.
I was amazed of the job in which they've done. They've done a great job, have great enthusiasm, great chemistry, and the players have really bought into him. And not only him, but the entire team, all the way down to the strength coach, because one of my former players from Miami is one of the strength coaches with the Rams as well.
So let me ask you something. Since we're talking about these coaches who have ascended and they're young, there was a hire that happened that I'm still, like if there's hair on the back of my neck, it stands up when I talk about this. So Cliff Kingsbury, right? He had just accepted the OC job, the offensive coordinator job at USC, and then the Arizona Cardinals hired him. But this is a dude that got fired from Tech. So I'm just bothered because of the lack of opportunity that, experienced, qualified African-American assistant coaches don't get. And when I hear them hire, so, I'm not really anti-Arizona, but I'm now pulling against them because I just think that goes against, forget the Rooney Rule, because clearly you guys didn't follow that at all. But you're not even trying. These guys that are getting jobs that have not put in the work, that don't have the body of work and experience, just because a couple of these college players have come up and been able to perform and succeed early. Man, that's crazy. Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me because I understand how it works. I understand that, and I've always known this. I've understood, and I just had this conversation last night. Uh, you have to be 10 times better. I was talking to Charlie Weiss one day, and I said to him, I said, when I was at LSU, uh, I had 2 seasons where I thought that was the best coaching that I'd ever done. And the reward I received was, and we were the best special teams in the country, and we were in the top 3 in rushing the football in the country. And I received an award, the best running back coach in the SEC. I said, but then I come to Notre Dame my first year as an offense coordinator and receive the award of assistant coach of the year. And I say, I've done, in 2 other occasions, I did a better job and wasn't recognized. And he said to me, that's because nobody else put your name up but me.
So I get that. And I get that we have to be 10 times better. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of people who I think are 10 times better than Cliff Kingsbury. He'd been fired in college.
But you don't necessarily know who he knew within that organization, because they hire who they know and who they feel comfortable with. You never know why they fired the guy that was in there for 1 year. You never understand what was happening behind closed doors, but it's about comfortability. And the problem.
So how do we get past that? Like, how do coaches, I mean, like, what does it take? And this rhetorical, I don't expect you to like have all the answers, but I think it's something, and the reason I talk about it, because I think there are conversations that are necessary to have, because it's not okay. Like, you have coaches, I mean, I know in my career and what I do, which is why I now create my own space to have a place to do what I do, so I don't have to continue to ask somebody to say, yes, you're qualified, right? And that's because the industry's changed, and with a lot of work, I'm able to do that. Because it's not about my qualifications, and the whole thing about comfortability is really just kind of an excuse, right? It's the good old boys network, because you can't really say, well, Pat Mahomes went to Tech and look what he's doing, and so we get Kingsbury. I mean, he doesn't get the credit for all those guys.
Right. Well, here's the other thing. When I was at Texas with Mac one afternoon, we were just sitting in there watching tape, and it was during recruiting season. And he walked into the room and he sat down and he said, I need your help. I said, okay, what can we help you with? He said, I need your help because we need to hire an African-American coach. And I don't know very many. Now, this is where the problem lies, because that speaks volumes. The problem lies is that minority coaches aren't allowed to sit at the same table. They aren't allowed to sit at the same. They don't go to the same meetings. They don't attend the same meetings. They are not invited to the same galas, nor are they invited to the same luncheons or head coaches meeting, assistant coaches meetings. They're not invited to those meetings. So I remember when I was Division I head coach, and I go into a meeting, and I look around the room. There's only 3 or 4 brothers in the room, and so it is really hard to get invited to that meeting. Like Scott Woodward, who's the AD over at Texas A&M right now. Scott Woodward came into LSU, and he came in with Mark Emmert, President Mark Emmert, and he was a lobbyist, basically. And so he came in and wanted to get involved with football. So Nick allowed him to come into the meeting rooms. That is how he ended up going to Washington, being an interim AD, becoming the AD at Washington, Guy leaves, leaves Washington, becomes the president of Texas A&M. He brings him with him a year or two later. We're not allowed to be in those conversations because we don't sit at the same table.
How do we get to the table? Like, how have you been able to get to some of those tables?
Well, I got at the table because of Notre Dame. Notre Dame got me at the table. Mac Brown assisted in getting me at the table.
So you need like an advocate, right? Like you need an advocate, not an agent, because that's a different kind of thing. But you need an advocate who's says
already
Mike
at the table.
Or John or Bob, let them come to the table. That's what you're saying.
But here's where the problem lies, though. When a lot of minorities become athletic directors, like Gene Smith, who's at Ohio State. You got a Notre Dame. I can't even think of which one is at from Notre Dame now that's at Auburn. When they start sitting at the table, they don't necessarily promote minorities at the table.
Right.
And so
Rick Smith, Houston Texans. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. But they don't necessarily promote minorities at the table. I've gotten more promotion from white head coaches than I have, and white ADs than I have minority ADs, and which is really interesting. But someone has to bring you to the table. The running back coach at Ohio State, who's originally from somewhere, I think Colorado State, but he's been trying to get a head job forever. And he was at Notre Dame prior to that. And he can't get a head job, not saying that he's qualified or not qualified, because he's not brought to the table. And he was the assistant head coach with Urban Meyer, but you can't, it is hard for a minority to become a head coach when you're an assistant head coach without being some form of a coordinator, offense coordinator, defense coordinator, special team coordinator. You're going to have to be some form of coordinator. And if you're a special team coordinator, you're going to have to be in the top 3 in the country, because you can't be Harbaugh, who gets a head job in the NFL with Baltimore from being a special team coordinator. You're going to have to be somebody different and somebody special.
So so we know we need to have more Charlie Weisses and Mac Browns, and so who are some of the coaches that bring African Americans to the table? I mean, who are some of the ones who are doing that, and what can African Americans do to be more, to get more looks, opportunities? Do you go to your head coach and say, hey, listen, this is what I want to do? I mean, how do you navigate that?
Well, first of all, Stan Wilcox, who was at Florida State, who left to go to the NCAA office, he was an advocate because he pounded the table for minorities. All right.
Okay.
However, what minorities do is that they pound the table for minorities in basketball, track and field, other sports outside of football. Well, why is it that they're pounding the table outside of football? Because football is the money-making sport. Football is the front porch to your university. Who are we going to put on that front porch to welcome people in, to get alumni to donate money? Who are we going to put on that front porch so that we can make this a money-making entity within our university? And so you're going to have to get a head coach to promote you. However, and I've seen this in 30 years of coaching, I've seen the relationship between assistant coaches and a head coach aren't always what it seems.
Okay.
Because on most staffs, most assistant coaches don't feel like they're comfortable enough to go and have that conversation with the head coach. And, I've been fortunate enough to have great relationships with multiple head coaches. And it's from the body of work in which I put out on the field and in recruiting. Well, you have to develop that relationship with your coaches. Meg Brown told me at one point in time, we were playing golf, and he said, I don't play golf with many assistant coaches. I said, well, why is that, coach? He said, because it is hard from an assistant coach to separate the two. when we're in the office, I'm the boss. When I'm out here on this golf course, I'm Mac Brown. He said, and when I get on guys in the office, they sulk. They walk around upset. They don't speak to you. They don't talk to you. He said, and I got on you one time. I said, yes, sir, I remember. And he said, and when you left the office, you said, yes, sir, I'll make sure that I get it done. And he said, you never changed. He said, the next morning you came in, he said, hey, coach, good morning. How you doing? Would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like some donuts? What's going on? He said, you never changed. Well, other assistant coaches, they carry it off the field with him. He said, so what I did is that I stopped associating with assistant coaches. And it was a work relationship. And so you have to develop and you have to work at that relationship with the head coach.
Who are some head coaches? And I know you and I talked a lot. You said you learned a lot about the game of the business of college football from Mac Brown. But what if you had to say who is the most influential head coach, football coach you worked for? Who would that be?
As far as coaching goes, I would say Nick Saban. And it's a totally different atmosphere now. You know, I used to have a plaque on my someone put a plaque on my desk one day, called it the Green Mile. The plaque was called the Green Mile because they say you're never leaving. I mean, it's like I get there at 7 o'clock in the morning. We break meetings at 10 p.m. at night. I was the special team coordinator, so I had to do my special teams at night. I went home at 1:30, 2 o'clock every night. So I went from 7 to 1:30 or 2 every night. And
7 in the morning to 1:30 or 2
in the morning.
next morning. In the
Yeah.
morning. Okay.
You grind. And you grind. And it is an act of perfection. All right. When I left Nick and went with Mac at Texas, Mac used to come into my office and cut off the light and say, go home. You are an abused child. Go home. I said, Coach, I don't know any other way. He said, go home. You're going to learn another way. You need to get out this office and have a life. It has been difficult for me in my coaching career to leave and go home and have another life because it was the only thing that I knew was the grind. And in my heart, the grind was successful. You know, although we won a lot of games at Texas, we went home. We came in at 7 in the morning. We went home 7 at night, and we won a lot of games. But we had great talent.
You had great talent at Texas.
We had great talent.
Is that why you think that Nick Saban has had the turnover that he's had at some of those positions, just because it is such a grind?
It is a grind. I mean, Enos, who he named offense coordinator, I hadn't talked to Enos, but he had talked to Morris Watts. And I said, Mo, why did he leave? He said, because he couldn't take Nick getting on him. So he went to Miami. I mean, you have to have thick skin. And you have to have thick skin, but you have to always know that with Nick as the head coach, he's putting the puzzle together, and he's putting the puzzle together for the whole picture. Not only is he putting the puzzle together for the X and O's, he's putting the psychological disposition together. He's putting the physicality together. He's putting the entire picture together. And you don't necessarily see that picture.
Right.
You know, not unless you sit and talk with him and ask the question that's in the program, do you understand the total picture? And so guys have a hard time dealing with that, and that's why there's so much turnover. You know, because you're gonna get the wrath, and some people are gonna get the wrath every day.
So, is it fair to say that Nick Saban probably hasn't slept since the national championship game? I mean, he's been probably working like a maniac, right? That's who he is.
No, but here, when Nick wins, he works like a maniac. When he loses, he is awesome in the office. He's not ripping people in the office.
Really?
No, because he's trying to build you back up.
Okay.
because how devastating it is to lose. So he's trying to build you back up. Now he's going to work like a maniac, but he's not going to work past 10 o'clock because he's going to go home at 10 o'clock. But doing that hour from 7 to 10, it's going to be a grind. All right. But he's going to try to build you back up because there's so many people that are beating you up on the outside that he's trying to build your confidence back again.
Do you think Nick will ever try to go back to the NFL?
No.
I mean, why would he? People keep saying that. I don't even see why he would ever leave Alabama. Like, why would he go anyplace else?
Sometimes he feels as though that the people in Alabama, not necessarily speaking of the institution, but outside, are not as thankful or grateful for the things in which he's done at the University of Alabama.
What else could the people do? I mean,
You would be amazed because I was in Alabama probably about 3 weeks ago. I was in Alabama, and you'd be amazed at the negativity because they lost the national championship game.
really?
Oh yeah.
After as much as they won?
Oh yeah, because you were supposed to win that one too.
Wow.
You know that old phrase, "You're as good as your last game."
I know.
And they are complaining, talking about he got out coached. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute now. You need to slow your roll a little bit. But that's how they feel.
Wow.
And that bothers him.
Really? I'm shocked to hear that. Not that it bothers him, but I'm shocked that he is, you know, that is the case. I mean, he's one of the best coaches ever.
He's one of the top 5 coaches ever to coach college football.
Ever.
But realize this, though. When Nick was at Michigan State, Nick was going to get fired. And then he hired Morris Watts to go back and be his offense coordinator. They won 10 or 11 games that year. Nick comes to LSU. Nick then wins the championship at LSU, goes to the Dolphins. Doesn't have much success because NFL players really don't take kindly to you getting in their face, to you, you getting after him the way Nick gets after you. So they didn't take very kindly or adapt to it. So he comes back to college football, and he's been perfect. I mean,
he's built a dynasty.
Oh yeah.
I mean, every year the conversation is Alabama and everyone else. And I think that changes now. It's no longer just Alabama. Obviously, it's also Clemson.
Right.
And Georgia's not far behind. I mean, and Texas may be creeping up, but it's definitely Clemson's in the mix.
Yeah, but Georgia lost some coaches. Mel Tucker went to Colorado. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, Mel, great dude. He was with us at LSU. But when you watch that game, Texas versus Georgia, I sent Tom Herman a text, and I said, brother, it was surprising to me, but it was the most physical football game that I've ever seen the University of Texas play in my time there and as a fan of University of Texas.
Really?
Oh yeah, the most physical I've ever seen them play, and their pride. He sent me back a text saying, "Thanks, Wood. I appreciate it." He said, "We're building it the way it should be built now," but Texas has never been a physical dominant football team. Texas has had so many Rolls Royces that, and Jaguars and sports cars running around on the field that they won on talent. But that was a physically dominant football team. And so it took a different stride. But they got tired of hearing about how good Georgia was and how physical Georgia was. So they stepped their game up to a different level. I think Georgia's always going to be in the top 10. But Clemson and Alabama are totally different from anybody else.
Well, yeah, they are the standard, right?
And I said, I was talking to Assistant Athletic Director Virgil Osbury over at LSU when I was over at his house a few weeks ago. And I said to him, before you can get into the conversation, you got to get a quarterback. He said, well, our quarterback is coming back. I said, well, your quarterback ain't like them other quarterbacks.
Right. Who is their quarterback? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
just watch him, and I said he ain't like them other dudes. I said because you're sitting here and you're within the organization, I'm out of it now. I'm not at LSU now, so I'm going to tell you this: you have everything you need in your program, but a quarterback.
Wow.
You better go get a quarterback, and they can't get one for some reason. I don't know why, but they can't get a quarterback. You know, the winningest quarterback is LSU is Herb Tyler. You know what Herb Tyler? Herb Tyler was 5'10", 180 pounds.
Herb Tyler?
Herb Tyler, 5'10", 180 pounds.
Let me ask you a question. So you mentioned quarterbacks. We know that Jalen Hurts recently opted out of being at Alabama. And how good is he? And do you like that the rule now that allows players to get out of their scholarship and go play someplace else?
Well, I've known Jalen Hurts' father since 1995. He was an offensive line coach over in Aldine MacArthur High School, and a really good person, really good guy. Now he's a head coach in college and high school football at Galena Park area. Um, I like the rule because it gives young people, once they've already graduated and gotten their degree, it gives young people that aren't having the experience in which they would like, maybe from an athletic standpoint or a social standpoint, whatever it is. It gives them an opportunity to go to another institution and maybe be able to fulfill their goals. Because as a coach, I believe the coaches are in the business of helping young people fulfill their goals, maybe academic, athletically, socially, career wise. I believe part of our job is to help young people fulfill their goals. Jalen Hurts is not able to fulfill his goals at Alabama. So allow this young man to go play somewhere else. And uh, as far as he is, I think Dan Enos has done a tremendous job with him in 1 year to make him a better passing quarterback. I don't think that previously that I would consider him a passer. I would consider him a thrower or a chunker.
Okay.
I think now, after 1 year with Dan Enos, I think that he has significantly improved. However, he still has a ways to go to be a quarterback. But he has great leadership ability, great elusibility. He's really a really nice young man, and good people like being around good people, and he's a good person. And I think that Oklahoma will help him to become a much better quarterback, and then he'll end up getting drafted and spend some time in the NFL. But they're going to have to teach him and coach him. The problem with the NFL that Charlie used to always say to me is that he said, you know, really you ought to go to the NFL because you're a teacher. He said, and there are very few teachers in the NFL. That's why guys get to stay so long, because coaches want to keep guys that already know the system so they don't have to teach. And he said, that's why you should go to the NFL to be a teacher. If he gets a teacher in the NFL, I think the sky's the limit for him.
So who do you think are some of the teachers in the NFL? I mean, if you had to, when you look around, who are they?
Well, I tell you what, you go to New England, and
Well,
I used to
yeah.
go to New England's practices and sit in their meetings, and the ones that get shipped out are the ones that don't teach. I mean, when you say, well, wow, why did he get fired in New England? Well, he wasn't teaching. And he wasn't teaching the details and the technique and the fundamentals. You know, he was just teaching the scheme. All right. And this is what you're supposed to do in the scheme. Well, what are the technique and fundamentals that I'm supposed to do when I get there? You know, what are the little things, the intricacies that I need to do? And I think that New England is great teachers. I think the Rams are great teachers. I've watched a little bit of the Saints, and the Saints are really good teachers. You know, I think they do a really good job of teaching. And you have to, uh, it separates, coaching by teaching. And I told someone the other day, uh, my last 3 years at Texas Southern University was the worst job I've ever done in teaching and coaching in my career. And they said, "Well, why would you say that?" I said, "Because I didn't get to coach. I had to manage all the activities and the issues that were going on, and I had to manage all the time and didn't get to coach. And I said that was really unfortunate. And I had to depend on other people to coach. And that's not what you want to do as a head coach, because you want to coach. And so that, you hire great teachers.
Do you think, Michael, in the NFL though, that there's a thought that when you get to this level as a player, that you should not need to be taught?
Yeah,
Is that why is that why there's not so much of it?
there's some people that believe that, but it has been proven that the ones that are teaching are the ones that are in the championship games. Like the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean,
Right.
uh, they're great teachers. You sit up and watch the little things. You watch the little moves in which they wait. You watch the hand placement and the feet moving together at the same time. You watch all these little intricacies that happen in the game, and you're like, "Wow, that was pretty neat right there." I wonder what drill they used to get that done. You know.
No.
But then other people say, "Hell, I drafted you in the first round. You ought to be able to do it. Or I drafted you in the second round. You ought to have the talent to do it." Well, it doesn't work that way. You know, you have to be taught, and you have to have great technique and fundamentals. And it's really interesting because I was watching the cut up of Georgia the other day, and it was this drill that we used to call. It was a 2-on-2 drill that we used to do at LSU with Nick, and I was watching how Georgia has escalated that to a different drill. It's the same drill, but how it has changed with what we say the spread offense is, and how it is run a little bit different, and how it had little tweaks in it, all right, because of the different passing schemes, the different routes that are being run, the different runs that are being run, inside zone, outside zone, and they tweaked the drill. And I said, wow, that's pretty neat right there. That's a good little change right there. Let me add this to my folder. And I sat down and I wrote the drill out and I put it in the folder. Yeah.
So before I let you go, since the show went a whole nother way, which is cool, because I did want to talk about this coaching thing, and because it's really an issue when it comes to football, college football, NFL football, in terms of opportunities. And we know that they hire people they like, people they know. And I just wish there was more that could be done so that more African-American coaches had opportunities that they deserve. I'm talking about qualified coaches. I'm not just talking about, hire them because they're Black. I'm saying there's a lot of really talented guys who never get a shot. So I'm glad to have that conversation. I think it seems like it's even tougher in college for for African American coaches to get a job or get a shot at D1 schools. And I know that whole thing about, can you manage the alumni, or will they respond to you? And it is an interesting journey. And I just, whatever we can tell people that helps them understand the process, right? When parents are helping their kids make decisions about where they go and who they're going to follow, and, what school they're going to commit to, which is coming up next week. To me, it's just disappointing that more opportunity doesn't exist for these African-American head coaches who are qualified. And who are qualified. Because there's a lot of guys that have been coaching a long time and were qualified. I'm going to go back to, I was doing a radio show in the 90s. And I remember before Tony Dungy got his first head coaching job, and I did this show with a guy named Max Edison. And there was this knock on Dungy that he didn't interview well. And it infuriated me, right? Because I'd interviewed him, I'd had him on my show, I'd seen him. And I'm like, who are these random writers around the country saying that he doesn't interview well? As we see now, we know that wasn't the case. But look at who Tony Dungy is, who he always was, the kind of coach and leader that he became when he had the opportunity, and how he's still looked at even now that he's no longer coaching. Right. And so, look what he had to deal with. And in 2019, we're having those same conversations. I mean, and get a Cliff Kingsbury, whatever, who's at Arizona. And I'm like, how successful is he going to be?
Right. But let me say this to you. I was watching. It was a game that was on last week and a couple weeks ago, and there was a commercial that came on, and I said, "Stop that commercial." I said, "Rewind that commercial." So they rewind the commercial. I said, "Tell me what you see about that commercial." And it was I think it was an air conditioner or a heating commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "It is really interesting to me in that commercial." I said, "Because that's a really bad commercial." And there were some marketing people here, and the one young lady says, "Oh my God, I didn't see it. I see it now." I say, "So what do you see?" She said, "That is a terrible commercial because every ethnicity is standing together in the group because it was not organized that way." And this goes back to college football. You hire people that are like you. You hire people that are sitting at the table with you. When when you looked at that commercial, you had a cluster of black, cluster of white, cluster of American, and then a cluster of Indians. And everybody was segregated in that commercial. It was unbelievable. But they didn't structure the commercial for everybody to mingle apart. Everybody just went and stood who they were comfortable against. All right. And so that's what happens in college football. We were
Well,
at,
I think it happens too in corporate America, which is what college football is,
right.
right?
We
It's
were
corporate
in
America.
right. We were in San Diego for a bowl game, and I was at the University of Texas. Mac Brown came into the meeting the next morning, and the golfer, the left-hand golfer, was there. Mickelson, he was there, and we just went into the restaurant, and people just sat. Mac Brown came into the meeting the next morning and said, "We have a problem," and everybody's looking at him. And this is about 2, 3 days before the game. I'm like, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "We have a segregation problem on our staff. There's only one person out of all the whites and blacks in here, all right, and Hawaiian in here, that didn't sit with people like them." And he said, "Michael, you're the only one that didn't sit at an all black table. Every white sat at an all white table, and every black sat at an all black table." He said, "And that's a problem. And if it's a problem in this room, then it's a problem with our team, and we have to address it and we have to correct it."
But so let me stop you for a second. But because Mac Brown, like you said, he brings guys to the table. He recognizes, he talks about it. He does. It's not just clearly about, obviously he wants to win. He's won at the highest level of college football. But other coaches, head coaches, because that's where they set the standard and they set the tone. And what other coaches would do that other than a Mac Brown? Are there many?
Not very many.
So that's a problem.
Dick Tomey,
right? Because
yeah,
Dick Tomey.
Yeah, Dick Tomey, he used to be the head coach at Arizona, head coach at Hawaii. Dick Tomey would do that because he was aware of that. And by the way, we should all send our prayers to Dick Tomey. He's here in Houston at the MD Anderson Cancer Institute because he has they're doing some tests and running some tests on him because of lung cancer, and so he's here getting treatment right now. And so we should send our prayers to him. But at the same time, there are very few. Nick pays close attention to it. I'll tell you this story right quick. So I'm working for Nick, and this is my second year for him. And he calls me in and said, "We have a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "They want me to fire you." I said, "Why would they want you to fire me when we're one of the top 3 Russian teams?"
Uh-oh. I need you to tell me that story again. You cut off the audio about why they wanted him to fire you. I think you're frozen. I'll wait till I see you moving again. So I'm talking to Michael Haywood. Michael, if you followed my show, has been on a number of times. He is there we go. We're going to bring him back in. Um, that's what you have to know about modern technology. It's kind of like live TV.
Right. So he said to me, he said, the alumni have come to me and they have a problem with you. I said, well, what have I done to the alumni? He said, you're recruiting too many black guys and not enough white guys. I said, okay. I said, so what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to sign this kid out of Lafayette so that you can just calm them down. But I want you to keep signing all them brothers that you're signing because all of them going to the NFL. And he said, and they're going to help us win, but we're going to appease them by signing this one kid out of Lafayette that they want us to sign. So I signed the kid out of Lafayette, didn't make a deal, and we just kept on going. And then he had a meeting with Shaw Group at the time. And he went to Shaw Group and he told Shaw Group, you guys are employing all of these players that are white players that aren't even playing, but you're employing them in your company. And all these black guys that have graduated from this institution are out there struggling trying to find a job. I need you to support the guys that are supporting our team and helping us to win. And I need you to hire some of these minority guys. And they start hiring some African Americans. And so not many coaches are going to step up to the alumni and say, hold on a minute. Some of these
Well,
black.
you know what? That's good to know, because we don't hear a lot about that, right? We
Right,
don't hear a lot about it, and those are the things that we should know. And we should know who are the coaches that support the kids that are winning, they're helping them win, that are helping them get those life changing contracts, right? Because if you don't have the talent, I don't care how good you are, like you said, like you told Coach LSU, man, you guys have everything, but you don't have a quarterback. If you don't have the talent, you're only going to go so far.
right. And so, there are a few guys out there like that. Like Clemson does it, Alabama does it, Georgia does it, LSU does it. You know, Texas. I tell you what, Texas spoils them rotten. All right, and I'm not sure what's going on at A&M because I haven't paid that much attention to A&M. But I tell you this now, University of Houston needs to start doing it.
We don't talk about them on this show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They don't credential me. They don't get to be discussed.
Is
So
that right?
yeah, it's
Oh,
yeah. So yeah, I don't talk about
all right.
them. Yeah, there's too many colleges around. I can cover A&M and Texas and bowl games, but I can't go to a Kruger game. Okay, but I can go to practice and press conferences. Yeah, I'm not. It's not my first time at the rodeo, so I know what that's about. I let them make it. And I
I,
always tell people I wouldn't send my kid to U of H if I had one.
I understand.
Well, Michael, as always, it has been entertaining talking to you. So we'll have to come back another time, probably next week, and talk about recruiting, who's going where, who went where. But I think the coaching conversation to kind of evolved, which is great. The show sometimes is just organic, is interesting, and it's good to know those things. And yeah, there's a problem, and it is about who are the coaches that are advocating for their assistants and their coordinators,
Right,
because it's not based on just talent, like most things in corporate America, which is what I always say sports really is.
right. I'll tell you this now, and they think that I'm joking half the time. Uh, but I tell you what, when you're in fellowship of Christian athletes, let me just tell you this, and you are a prominent person in fellowship of Christian athlete and a coach, you're going to have a chance to become a head coach.
Really?
You will have a chance to become a head coach.
So that's a powerful organization.
It is a powerful organization. Yeah, very powerful.
Well, that look, we learned something else. All right, Mike Haywood, thank you so much. Hopefully, we'll be making some announcements soon about some new stuff that you're doing.
All right.
But I will talk to you soon. And as always, thank you for being a part of the show. You always make me look like I know what I'm talking about. I appreciate that.
Well, Kim, I tell you what now, the last time I was on your show and the assistant coach Bill Lies was sitting in the office and he was just listening and he said, who is that? I said, Kim Davis. He said, oh, I heard you talk about it. He said, she really knows her football.
Well,
So
listen.
you are impressive, and we appreciate all you do.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike. Coach
Take care.
Mike Haywood, take care. So yeah, guys, how about that? That was a treat. It was a real last minute ad, but if you are watching the show, or if make sure you share the video so that people can come back and watch the replay and the rebroadcast. I'm also going to do a much better job of uploading these shows to my YouTube channel. And I think today was just really good information about the world of the business of college coaching, and even the business of coaching in football, period, college and at the NFL level. So as always, thank you for being a part of the show. Thanks so much for continuing to follow Chalk Talk. And I am going to be posting some things later today about an event I'm having on February the 20th, a tailgate party at Mandola's restaurant. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible. In the meantime, make sure you do something kind for yourself and something kind for someone else. I'll see you next Thursday, but until then, follow me here on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, Kim Y. Davis, and follow me on Instagram at kim.y.davis. Have a great weekend, everybody, and let me know what you're making for the Super Bowl. See you next week.